Sometimes a great fight needs a rematch. Now that doesn't always happen. I can think of a few examples this year alone where I suspect the rematch won't happen. Um, James DeGale versus Badu Jack, cracking fight. The number one and number two in their respective weight divisions, super middleweight. Fight fought to a draw. Is there going to be a rematch? We don't believe so. Politics has got in the way. Badu Jack's ambitions at a different weight class has got in the way. Gennady Golovkin versus Danny Jacobs. Cracking fight. Golovkin wins by the skin of his teeth. Huge controversy at the decision. Will there be a rematch? We suspect not an immediate one. Golovkin's got other options. He's chasing Canelo. Billy Joe Saunders has made it clear he wants to fight, which would be a unification fight for all the belts. Jacobs potentially will be left out in the cold. Conversely, sometimes we see a fight and you don't necessarily believe there needs to be a rematch. Tyson Fury versus Derek Chisora, a fight that springs to mind. You know, how many of us saw that first fight and thought the result would really be different if those guys squared off again? The two guys got back in the ring and it was the same result, even more convincingly for the victor that time. It's not always the case. You know, I was one of those thinking, do we really need to see a Carl Frampton versus Leo Santa Cruz rematch? You know, I kind of felt to myself, Leo Santa Cruz, he proved to be a little bit behind Carl Frampton in fight one. I thought Carl Frampton, the boxer out of the two, had worked out Santa Cruz. I thought Carl Frampton had already worked out the blueprint to how to be victorious against Santa Cruz. And I thought Santa Cruz, as the more basic operator of the two, as I perceived it, would struggle to bring a new game and struggle to adapt against a guy who'd already proven to be the superior fighter. I was wrong. Santa Cruz, as we know, turned up with renewed tactics, adapted his game completely, and Carl Frampton looked a bit flat. So rematches are a strange thing. Sometimes we want them and we don't get them. Sometimes we get them and the result is exactly the same as the first time round. Sometimes we get them and the result kind of goes against the grain. Now, Anthony Crolla versus Jorge Linares is a fight that I certainly wasn't clamouring for a rematch for after the first one. Now, I know that the judges scored this fight as a competitive fight. You know, if you didn't watch this fight and if you looked purely at the judges' scorecards, you would be forgiven for thinking this was a life and death battle that could have gone either way. But if, like me, you watched the fight live, if you scored the fight round by round, I genuinely believe it would be very, very, very few and far between that people would pick Anthony Crolla as the winner of that fight. I actually scored the fight incredibly wide. I cannot remember my exact scorecard now, but I think I had it something like 5 or 6 rounds in favour of Jorge Linares. You know, and I'm sure I never take my videos down, so my post-fight video will be up still, and maybe I'll have another look at that. But I scored this to Linares incredibly wide. I felt that Linares proved to be substantially the better man out of the two. I thought Linares proved to be leagues above in terms of boxing capability. I thought the work that Linares showed in the ring actually at times made Anthony Crolla look a little bit basic from a boxing standpoint. You know, if we look at levels, Crolla is a guy who has proven that he's at world title level. He's won a belt, he's defended it, he beat Barroso, he beat Darlis Perez. Yeah, he's a guy who deserved to be there or thereabout in the mix. But for me, the boxing performance that Jorge Linares put on proved that he was, you know, on the way to being considered an elite boxer. Now, I appreciate that lightweight is actually a relatively stacked division. You got guys like Mikey Garcia, you know, up right in that elite section alongside Jorge Linares. Not to mention other world-class operators like Terry Flanagan, Robert Easter Jr., etc. But for me, Jorge Linares' fight against Anthony Crolla, Jorge Linares actually looked like something quite special in there. The way he moved, the way he picked his punches, the way he jabbed, the way he used reins. You know, I thought he looked like a real elite fighter against Crolla. And Crolla, He's a very likeable guy, both inside and outside the ring. Just didn't really seem to have the same class, the same pedigree, the same technique as Linares at the time. Now, what Crolla is he's gritty, tough, determined, and I don't think you're going to find too many men in boxing with a bigger heart than Anthony Crolla. So Crolla stuck in a fight. He stuck in a fight that he was losing, and he had spells of success. For me, largely due to his never say die attitude, due to his stamina, his fitness, his work rate. And Crolla actually made the fight slightly more competitive and slightly closer than it initially appeared the fight was going to be. I remember thinking at halfway that Linares could potentially, some judges might have Linares winning every single round here. But Crolla, credit to him, made it a more difficult night work and did admittedly have spells of success. I think for me the issue is prior to this fight there were question marks over Linares. People questioned his stamina. People questioned his heart. People questioned his punch resistance. And for me, he answered all of those questions well. And he actually rallied quite nicely late on in the fight. If I recall, Crolla had a little spell where, potentially you could think maybe the tide was turning, and then Linares seemed to get his second wind and come on strong again. So the question is, are we going to see noticeable decrease from Jorge Linares? Could he have overlooked Anthony Crolla? Could he have declined substantially since that fight? Or is Crolla going to do a Leo Santa Cruz? And is Crolla going to bring something completely different? Is he going to bring a new tactic, a new technique that at present I can't possibly predict? And is he going to surprise Leo Santa Cruz? Is he going to be able to surprise Jorge Linares, outbox Jorge Linares, and enjoy success in the second fight that he wasn't able to enjoy in the first fight? Now, having watched a lot of Anthony Crolla fights, and Crolla is a guy who has improved immensely. I've got a lot of respect for Anthony Crolla. I've met Anthony Crolla, a lot of respect for him. But he is a guy who, for me, is not the most accomplished technician. He is a guy who has a way of fighting, and he is a guy who will get by on work rate, pressure, stamina, heart, durability. He's not necessarily a guy who's going to blow your socks off with ridiculous skill and technique. And I think, unfortunately, that's where he's been found out in the first fight. And I don't see how he's going to, close the gap in that second fight. Jorge Linares, I appreciate he's not a young man anymore. I appreciate he's been in fights. But he looked very, very good last time out against Anthony Crolla. And I've got no reason to suspect what would have to be a substantial decline. And whilst Crolla has improved, has he improved in the areas? Whilst Crolla has improved throughout the course of his career, has he ever shown that he's got that ability to box with a guy like Jorge Linares and to nick rounds from distance behind a jab against a guy like Jorge Linares? I think Linares has proved that Crolla's style of tight defence, walk forward, put under pressure, drop to the body is simply not going to be enough. Linares has next levels to his game, as I see it. Now, I thought that was the same with Leo Santa Cruz. Leo Santa Cruz reinvented himself in that fight with Frampton in the second fight. Santa Cruz came out, he committed to the jab, he boxed, and I thought, I was really, really surprised at that. I didn't think Santa Cruz had that in his armoury. I think Santa Cruz, however, did enjoy some significant advantages over Frampton, potentially in terms of size and range, that Crolla also doesn't enjoy over Linares. I think not only does Linares have the technical advantages, he's also probably got a range and reach and movement advantages as well. So, whilst Leo Santa Cruz did surprise me and did prove me wrong in that fight, I'm just not so sure that that Crolla has the physical attributes to get the job done. Of course, one other factor that you do have to consider is the judging. The judging in the first fight was very, very generous to Anthony Crolla. Very generous. If Linares has even overlooked Crolla 1% and Crolla's able to nick one early round, maybe one late round that he wasn't able to nick in the first fight, potentially we're going to see very controversial scoring. The fight is in Crolla's backyard. It's on Crolla's promoter's show. It's in front of Crolla's fans who will be screaming his name and cheering and going mad. Yeah, we've seen some dodgy decisions recently. We saw one judge score a draw to the home fighter in Gavin McDonnell. We saw Ricky Burns beat Kirill Relic. Ricky Burns has had a few over the years, let's be honest. So the judging, and it's the same to be talking about the judging. The judging is actually my biggest concern for Linares. If I was Jorge Linares, I'd be more concerned about the judges than I would be against Anthony Crolla. And that comment is in no way meant to be disrespectful to Anthony Crolla, but that's my honest opinion. Has Linares got old overnight? I doubt it. Has Linares overlooked Anthony Crolla? I doubt it. Crolla, maybe he can do what he did last fight, 1 or 2% better. Maybe he'll be 1 or 2% more experienced, having had that fight. But is he going to bring something that's really going to get the better of Jorge Linares? Not based on what I saw in the first fight. The gap was simply too wide. I'm picking Jorge Linares to win. I'm picking Jorge Linares to win on points. I'm picking Jorge Linares to win with a little bit in hand. Let me know your thoughts. Drop your comments in the section below. Give me your predictions on the fight. Is this a rematch you want to see? Do you believe the fight is competitive? Leave your thoughts in the section below. If you've enjoyed the video, take the time please to hit the thumbs up button, which helps me out massively. And if you're new to the channel or you haven't done so before for whatever reason, please do subscribe so you can check out all of my other videos. As always, appreciate you guys tuning in and taking the time to listen to my thoughts on this one.